Thank you for joining us for today's webinar, How to Build a Performant Retail Site Without Compromising Design. My name is Kat Allen. I'm a Senior Product Marketing Manager here at Netlify. Today, we're thrilled to welcome Michael Klim, CTO and co-founder of our agency partner, Commerce UI, and Evan Backus, designer from Aether Apparel. In this session, we'll be exploring the business challenges of building and designing a modern e-commerce website, from identifying the right tech stack to the final product, a beautiful, design-forward, and performant web experience. We're going to start with Michael, who will discuss the scope and goals of the redesign project for aetherapparel.com. And then we're going to hand it over to Evan, who's going to walk us through the live website, some of the decisions that were made, and show us some of the amazing design elements that make this website so successful. So Michael, with that, I will hand it over to you.
All right. So first of all, thank you for having me here. I would like to give a bit of an outline how it all started. So basically, we were approached around somewhere at the beginning of 2022 by Aether Apparel with basically a clear task of replatforming their old site, which was more in like a monolithic architecture. So it was like a combination of a WordPress and Shopify site, Shopify Liquid site. And I have to say, right from the beginning, we were totally on board. We love to work with, those bold design-driven brands, and Aether Apparel was basically that brand. So we jumped on board pretty quickly. And moreover, I have to say, we understand the problems that the team had. So we heard those problems even before with our previous work. And if I would have to give an outline of that, it was basically about bad performance of the old site, lack of the ability to add and change rich content on the site or make it maintainable actually, and overall uplifting overall look and feel of the site. So yeah, I think at this point I will pass this question to you, Evan, to also give your perspective more.
Well, thanks for having me, everyone. So I came into Aether back in 2016 to redesign the site. So that was the 2.0 version. And we had always been on the Shopify platform. And as Shopify grew, it expanded enough where it's where we wanted to go with e-commerce. But as Michal was mentioning, we were using this kind of like proto-headless concept with using WordPress. And so we were trying to build in this really robust storytelling mixed in with an e-commerce shopping experience. The owners of Aether originally said, I want to be able to go on the website and it needs to be as cool as when you walk into one of our stores. So it's kind of a tall order, right? Like that sort of can't happen, but it's this kind of goal we always kind of strive for because their stores are quite cool. Anyway, so when we went to Commerce UI, we had like two main things, was like this storytelling and speed. So we knew that we needed to, I think like a lot of people ask, like, how do you kind of make that big jump to like re-platform and switch? And I think the way we were thinking about it was that, I had in my head that I didn't feel great about working on WordPress, 3 years from now. So we went to the owners and, essentially like they understood that we needed to kind of work on this 3 to 5 year arc. And so like when you're looking at your site and you're looking at your tech stack, I feel like you have to be pretty confident that, that you feel really good about what you have right now for the next 3 years. That doesn't mean you can't iterate and you're not going to evolve everything. But right now, I feel really great about where we're at for the next 3 years. But before we came to Commerce UI, we absolutely were not. It felt like we were kind of on a, in a rickety car, just keeping the wheels on. But no one else, could tell from, a public point of view, things were transacting and things were working just fine. If in all intents and purposes, people thought it was a beautiful site, but we knew the back end. And so that's a little bit of like the thinking behind, just making that switch. Because it's like, it's a business. It's not just, we're a design driven company, but it is ultimately, you can kind of marry the two, like good design with good business practices. It all sort of equates together. Good design, high performance websites, usually ends up with correlating to better sales.
Yeah, definitely. And it was you actually mentioned those 2 points, the speed and storytelling, and that basically was like a North Star for us. And it, right from the beginning, it put us on this, headless composable path, because we knew that we need to have control over every aspect of that, and being able to control how we fetch the data, how we render the data, when we render the data, or when we fetch the data, was crucial for that side. And also, when it comes to the storytelling, we knew that we need to go with a headless CMS, basically, of our choice, which in this case is Sanity. And it allowed us to actually expand the editorial capabilities of the Shopify and actually build a maintainable editorial workflow that if there's like one exact thing we are I am really proud of that side is the editorial experience. So yeah, hopefully when everyone will be showing the site, that will be seen what are the actual capabilities there.
I guess just to add to that is that as the owners of Aether, I'm so thankful they are so design driven, but their kind of main goal was the storytelling. Like, how do we, again, they think in terms of retail, but when you walk into a store and you try on a jacket and you've got a smart sales associate who can tell you about all the materials and the details and like how you should use it and how it should fit, how do you bring that experience to an e-comm site? Because like so many e-commerce sites are so transactional and they're trying to just build as many as possible and get it to sale and then move on. I guess ours is a little bit different because we don't have just seasonal. It's not, here's a collection and then it goes on sale and it's gone. We keep, sometimes they sell out, but generally speaking, a lot of the pieces in the jackets stay up for 1 to 2 to 3 years or longer, and we just keep iterating on the same pieces. So it made sense for us to invest a lot of time and effort on making these really robust product pages. So and I'll show you, but essentially we needed this really flexible, modular, fast system in order to to be able to make these really special product pages that kind of nobody does. So I felt like that was a big leap in being able to do that. And the underlying thing, again, was just optimization and speed, and like what Michal and his team did, where I was blown away by, it's this sort of like confluence of dozens of little decisions. It's like the code, the CMS, the React framework, like using Netlify. It's all these little details that come together to make something really fast, because so many e-com sites are bogged down in scripts and pixels and layers upon layers of years of iterating on top of each other. And they're very mindful of like, when we make an update, how is that affecting the overall speed every time they do something? So I'm very thankful for them for that.
Yeah, thanks a lot for that. So I've also remember from our initial talks, and that was like a big point for us. I remember that you have so many ideas at the beginning, like how to, for some e-commerce flow, how to build a community around the Aether Apparel with the help of the site and so on. So we've talked about a lot of different concepts at the beginning, and we knew that this site will grow in terms of functionalities, in terms of content, and so on. And that's where this composable spirit went in, because we knew that we have to be able to switch some of the pieces of the site. We have to be able to build upon them or expand them, and moving forward constantly, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I myself and some of the other people on the team, we had way too many ideas. Sort of the excitement of being able to redesign and re-platform and like what could you do is really exciting. But again, Michal and his team, they were good at sort of like letting us focus on what was most important. And you just have to remember with the web is that you prioritize things. I mean, generally speaking with e-comm, like you prioritize the sales flow, but then you have years typically to keep iterating. Like, we meet weekly and are consistently working on a roadmap to like fine tune everything. But we made sure that it wasn't, that we had the storytelling element into it, just so that there was a sense of surprise and interest, and this translated to longer time that users were spending on the website, which is great. It wasn't just like, hey, go to this page, go to the jacket, and hopefully you buy it. It was like, try to understand the brand, and if that person ends up loving the website and then walks into the store, that's great. Like however that works.
Yeah, you've mentioned. I actually wouldn't say that you have too many ideas. I honestly think it was right on point. Like, definitely, we believe that in this increasingly competitive D2C market, you have to have many ideas for your site, and you have to experiment with those, and you have to move fast, basically. And yeah, the experimentation is really important. So we would like to think about the site as also from a point of view of editor or editorial team, let's say. And yeah, at the end of the day, you shouldn't be calling development team every time you want to change something on the site, like update the headline or change the image, or maybe experiment with a totally different section. And you should have as many ideas as you want and be able to put them on the site right away. So in this manner, basically all of those tools that we are using, we also always have in the back of our mind, we're always thinking about, is it expandable? Is it adjustable? Because one thing is to enable the experimentation and actually build a system that allows you to change the content, to update some settings and so on. But another thing is to make it as easy as possible, or as close to current business flow as possible, so it will be actually used.
Yeah, I mean, there's typically like a huge bottleneck with, I've worked with companies in the past, and you want to make a new page and you're like, well, it's going to take this X amount of time, or it's too long, or you have to plan so far ahead, and the web moves so quickly. So like what Michal's saying is like, it allows us to be much more nimble. And especially like over the last few years with supply chain issues and like disruption of like when products is coming in, and it allows us to be a lot quicker on our toes with different release schedules, and like wanting to highlight certain products more flexibly and to give that, more of a story behind it. Yeah, it's sort of like the flexibility of the tools you build have to like enable you to be able to work quickly. And that's something that was huge for us, because in the previous site, we would want to kind of introduce a new collection and we'd have to do custom code. We'd have to do, I mean, it was fun, but it was like, it was such a bottleneck. So now I'll show you, but we just launched our eyewear collection yesterday, and essentially like I can use all the tools that they built and I can build this really robust page, just internally. And we can do it within a week or less than a week. So it's really powerful.
Yeah, it always makes me very happy seeing that you're updated your homepage. Like I'm not sure how many times that happened since we released at the beginning of the September, I believe, but I think many times. So yeah, it is making me happy. So yeah,
probably 25 times. We never could do that before. We used to update the homepage sort of like when a collection would launch, or then like a little mid-season, and then near the tail end of the season, it was like, it'd be like 12 times a year. And now like we can do all these like small iterative updates constantly. It's just so easy. It doesn't like break our workflow. So we're changing the homepage and the men's and women's landing pages, every other week easily. Yeah, and sometimes it's not just like because we have new assets. Sometimes that's the case, but it's also just we can move the pieces around. It's like merchandising. Again, the store analogy is like, you walk into a store, and a lot of like the best retail stores just move things around, because you just don't sometimes catch it the right way, So good merchandising on the site it's not just like moving the products on a collection page. It could also be like how things are featured. So
yeah, I remember we put a lot of effort into finding like a right balance between making it fully adjustable, but at the same time safe to update. Basically, like we wanted to give you as much freedom as possible, but at the end of the day, we don't want to make it complicated for you. Like I think a good example is like images or videos, and we are using also external services for that to automatically optimize those and prepare for different devices, different resolutions, and so on. And yeah, we didn't want you to think about this, basically.
Yeah, I mean just the management of like if you just take the example of making a single product, right? Like, I mean, all the prep work of having photo shoots, and so now you have your assets, and like you don't want to have to spend all day, cropping images and like producing alternate versions for different, like here's the mobile version, like so. Some of these more modern CMSs and like the one we're using with Sanity, like allows us to do this so much faster. Like I don't have to make like web ready, like I have thousands of folders on my computer from the old days of like web ready files as a designer. And now I don't have to do that. And it's totally mind blowing to me that I could drop a JPEG in, I could crop it within the CMS. And it's like, so, and then it handles all the compression and like different for different displays. It's pretty unbelievable.
And maybe Evan, you can show the site basically.
All right, so maybe assume everyone can see this. All right.
Yeah.
So yeah, the exciting thing is we just launched this yesterday. This is like our new Aether optics. It's like the first time we're having a eyewear collection. And what's cool is like we shot some video, but we also took some really like detailed stills, and then we kind of turned those into video, which kind of mimics this like nice motion effect. But yeah, this is the site, our top navigation. It's quite simple of men, women, and explore. But just kind of going through the site, you know, you can already see this is what we had when we had launched our spring arrivals the other week. But already from the get-go, we've got a few different videos. Like basically with like the new tech stack, we're able to be able to have, you know, high quality imagery, videos, and it's not slowing down the performance. If anything, like the site works, you know, quite well. This is actually for we do like a motorcycle rally out in Joshua Tree, which is in a couple weeks. So we've been able to finally like, you know, use all these like assets and videos. Like we go on, you know, really cool photo shoots and shoot a lot of video. And so now it's like we're able to actually like use this, use all these assets. But essentially these are all, you know, this is sort of this week's homepage of what's going on with the site. I mean, and then if you go, you know, into like the men's landing, we have all these, you know, these are all like modular components that we're using, but we have a good amount of them where, you know, it doesn't seem like we're duplicating the same components over and over again. So, but this allows us to do a lot of, you know, even like I said before, this is like it's a good exercise in merchandising and how to adjust things. Like, you know, 2 weeks ago, we showed one concept one way. And then this week we, you know, changed it into we switched the image or we switched the orientation. So that's something we were never able to do before. But just going into, you know, into our new styles, kind of the fun part is we have this kind of stack of imagery that we can go through. But even just going into one of the product pages, so this is a product that came out a couple of weeks ago, the Storm all-weather jacket. And so, you know, at the top area, it's kind of has the classic e-commerce elements. And then, you know, as you go down, it has more photography and storytelling elements that kind of goes into, you know, we do a lot of technical apparel, so it does lend itself well for Aether, but this essentially could work for any brand because, I mean, most companies spend an incredible amount of time on their products, and yet they don't kind of like showcase them well enough. So that was kind of the crux of what we were trying to do was like, how do you know, you spend 2 years on a jacket, right? But then it just kind of comes out. No one really knows the effort. So we had to put in more effort into the product pages so that, you know, that was understandable. So yeah, so like sort of what used to be a, you know, what I would call like a feature page is now just an ordinary product page. And like that alone is like blows my mind that like we could do this now. And we also have these technical specifications with like temperature range, and then, you know, these accordions with material and hardware. So these are all like the real nuts and bolts, like details if, you know, if someone's interested in knowing about it. But this is just a single product page. And also sometimes one of the things we do is, you know, we'll customize it basing on the color. So you can also, you know, switch to total eclipse, this blue color, then this actual piece, we switched. So, we do a lot of these pairings with scenic photography mixed with products. But it's a good example of like, this work would have been too much of an effort to ever have done this before, right? And now it's quite easy and simple to do. So as long as we have the assets, then we can actually pull this off. And what's important too, it seems like maybe it could be perceived as over the top, but like one thing we always have to remember is that people are coming into your site at every direction, right? Like you can't assume that someone's always just looking at the white jacket first. Like people are sharing links. They may have come to this one first. So, if this showed a white jacket, it's not the end of the world, but like these little details all matter. They all accumulate and add to the experience. But even just looking at this, the new feature page we built for the eyewear company, or for the new eyewear collection. Essentially, this is kind of like what now would be like a feature page. Like, because the product pages can be so good, it begs the question of like, well, then what do you do for, a new kind of presentation page? So they have to be, it's perfect for this case study because we have 4 different styles. So it's like, how do you explain 4 different styles into one page? And it works great as a good landing page, as you're sending emails or you're running ads, you're directing a lot of traffic to these pages. You need kind of like one page that can kind of house the idea, and then from there, people can link over to specific product pages.
All right. I think it's a maybe a good moment if I also talk a bit about how it was built, basically, how more about maybe some technical stack. So this site, in a nutshell, is basically a jump stack. So it's statically built site on top of Next.js. So yeah, we are using Next.js. We are hosting it on Netlify, and basically every site is revalidated using ISR at the bottom. So those sites revalidates. So we have different strategies for different sites. Some sites are less dynamic, I would say, in the content. So those revalidate less often. Some sites like PDP revalidates much more often, basically. And as we mentioned before, the e-commerce platform behind it is Shopify. So we using Shopify storefront API and a bit of different APIs of Shopify, like admin API and so on. And another big part of the site is aforementioned Sanity. So from our point of view, a statically built site has a lot of advantages. So it gives us as one thing is basically performance. So the user that comes to the site is being served basically with static HTML, which is one of the faster things there could be. But at the same time, it gives us a lot of confidence, since we can, for example, catch some of the bugs during the build process. So, and having ISR on board is making this process maintainable. Another thing I think, which is curious for this site, is how we connected the Shopify with the Sanity. So we choose Sanity from its composability, basically, but also for the reason that Shopify has a very good connection with the Sanity, like out of the box. You get an application, and the content from the Shopify is being synced to the Sanity, and having that data in the CMS is tremendous thing, basically. So when we have that, we can start building upon that, and we can expand strictly e-commerce data with some rich content, with some sections and so on. So that's like the baseline we are at. Another thing is how we handle the media. So there are numerous tactics, but it was a bit challenging also, since every section could be in our setup. Basically, we don't code the site itself. We code those sections, and that basically means that every section can be a first one. So we have to come up with a system that basically allows us to treat the media on the first sections or first above the fold sections a bit differently than the rest of it. So we try to prefetch as much as we can of the images, and then lazy load everything else. So the same comes with the video. So for example, and basically loading video on a site without hurting its performance, it's not an easy task, and we've choose a bit different strategy. So we don't try to show the video as fast as possible. So at the beginning, we don't load the video at all. We just load the first frame of the video, then we wait that the video is loaded in the background, and only then we load the full video. So we try to avoid, you know, this staggering effect, and at the same time we wanted to show something right from the beginning. So yeah, lazy loading everything that you can, and it doesn't only comes to the media. We also lazy load every script that we possibly can, basically, like every analytics script, every pixel script, every widget script. There are some widgets on the side that are lazy loaded. So, and that was also possible with all of the Next.js abstractions there. I skipped a bit video, but it's also worth mentioning that we're using Max as a service to optimize the video. So there's an integration of Max to the Sanity. So the editorial experience is quite seamless, but at the same time, the video is optimized not by Sanity, but by Max, and we get all of the different dimensions, all of the different formats we need to show on different devices. So I think another part would be that we pretty much care a lot about layout sheets, so we try to avoid them as much as we can. And once again, it involved delaying, preloading, prefetching as much as possible. So also all of those sites are prefetched when the link comes in view. So even if this site wasn't built during the build process, the prefetching makes sure that it's being built in the background, and the constant navigation will be snappy as snappy as the first render, basically.
Yeah, thanks, Michal. It's really great to hear all that too. It's a reminder of how much work goes into it, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, in the background there's happening quite a lot. Even with even with the simple video that I've mentioned, we at some point we had to, for example, build a custom hook that is updating the Sanity with a newest, or because the Max is taking some time to process the video, and the highest resolution is taking longer time, basically. So we had to be able to build something that reacts to that change and basically updates this in the Sanity. So It works quite seamless at the top, but in the background, there's a lot of happening there. So yeah, I was thinking, should we also show the like the studio or the backend of the site?
Yeah, let me just load up the homepage, and then it's kind of nice to just to see how we work in Sanity. Essentially, this is it. There's page builders, journal, our stores, our products, but just even looking as simple as what the homepage is like. So this is the page builder of these pieces. So this is like the first video component that's at the top of the homepage. So we have titles and descriptions, and we have space sizes for margins and media types. We have accessibility built in. Always make your websites accessible. Very, very important. And we just have all these modular details that allows us to be able to like switch depending on what kind of imagery we're working with. Here's the buttons and linking, secondary CTAs. Like this is just one piece, and this allows us to do and then you can pull up, say, one of the products. This is like this is for the eyewear, and we do live previews. So like as I'm building these, this is fetching all the Shopify, like the imagery up here is set up in Shopify, but everything else below is set up in Sanity. So as I'm like building these pages, and I design them in Figma first, and then move them over into Sanity, and and I can build a page like this once it's done in Figma. I can do it in like 15 minutes. So, and then we can publish it, and it's quite fast. I mean, sometimes my design process takes a little slower, but like in terms of building, it's quite quick. And that's like just remarkable. And you can move all the components around, and this is essentially like our list of componentry that we can work with. So we've got like at least 15 or so pieces. So it's just like this modular system that we can keep reusing over and over again, and keeping it fresh and different. Yeah,
and
5 minutes.
Yeah, I think that's the a good representation what like the touch systems could give you, like those headless CMS that basically are all about structured data, and you solve CMS related problems independently from the front end or from the storefront related problems. So very, very often in those monolithic systems, you have to go around. You have to go around and build some kind of hacks around how do you edit the content, how do you add the content, and with those kind of approach, you also have like total control over what data comes to the front end, how the data looks like, and there are no unneeded load around it, which is also has a lot of influence over the performance of the site.
I think we're going to go ahead and jump into Q&A. Lots of really great questions and lots of compliments on the design of the website, which I agree is totally brilliant. Okay, so first question, this one comes from Ro. He asked, does Sanity have better dynamic image cropping than the likes of Decap or Contently?
So I don't think it's I wouldn't say better or worse. I would say the way the Sanity handles images basically blew my mind, and out of the box. And yeah, thank you, Evan, for showing that. Out of the box, you get cropping, you get the information about the focal points, you get multiple formats. So in the response from it, you get the information about, you get blurred images, you get multiple sizes, you can do transformations up front with the images. Yeah, you have aforementioned focal point, which we use a lot. So we allow to Evan to set up the most interesting part, and we actually will always show that on the image. We'll make sure it's always showing, but it's also the API that Sanity provides us is so great that it also allows us to crop as small image as we need. So we don't load the whole image and just position them on front end. We actually tell the Sanity, okay, please, we have this ratio, please have that, please show that inside the image and crop everything else. So yeah.
Okay, so next question comes from James. Your page speed is impressive, especially with the large images and videos. Were there any challenges with that?
Yes, definitely. So I would say that the biggest one, some of the changes comes with the Jamstack architecture, basically. So in this, one of the biggest challenges in this approach is that sometimes you want to show completely different component on a mobile and completely different component on a desktop. And when you statically build the site, you don't know on what device you will show that site. So basically, what you do is that you rendering both of those components at the same time, but you have to make sure that, for example, if you're on a desktop, let's not load those mobile images, and that's something only clients know. So there are numerous strategies for that. We built abstraction around it that allows us to set up different source sizes. So we know when there is a different version for the mobile of the component or on the image, we try to manipulate the source sizes or source set in a way that it will show the correct, or it will fetch only the correct media on correct breakpoint. So yeah, I would say that is like the biggest challenge. And apart from that, you have to implement all of those medium or basic tactics, like prioritizing medias, lazy loading them, providing a basically comprehensive source size and so on. So yeah.
Awesome. So next question is from Henry. What is the desktop mobile split of the traffic? And that being said, were there any discussions about sending all that video data down the wire for mobile?
So the split is, I would say, around 50-50. Correct me if I'm wrong here, Evan, how it looks right now. But yeah, usually we see much bigger traffic from the mobile in the e-commerce sites. However, with Aether, I would say it's around 50-50. So it's rather curious case. I'm not sure if I get the part about sending it through the wire. Could you maybe repeat that, Kat?
Yeah, so the question was, were there any discussions about sending all that video data down the wire for mobile? I'm not quite sure what he's getting at either. Maybe Henry, if maybe you could rephrase that question and we'll come back to it at the
Yeah.
end. But I'm going to keep rolling because we've got quite a lot of questions. Okay, so next question is from Stuart. Does using Shopify as the back end limit you in any way versus building your own back end system?
That's a tricky one. Yes, but you should be limited basically. So and if you want to expand, there are different ways, like for example, expanding the editorial capabilities with the Sanity, and that's what going headless or going composable gives you. You can choose the tools for the job, but we treat the Shopify strictly as an e-commerce platform. The whole editorial we put on the Sanity. So I wouldn't say that Shopify limits you as an e-commerce platform. Of course, you have to you have some limits there, and you have to go with Shopify way when you build your product structure and so on. But you will be limited by every platform you choose in that manner. What Shopify gives you is definitely a reliable system with a really big ecosystem that does a lot of things for you and for your clients basically. So yeah, I wouldn't say so much that it limits you. Yeah.
Another question from Stuart. What trade-offs did you consider when choosing the CMS? Example, Sanity versus Contentful versus Strappy. So what made y'all go with Sanity above the others?
Yeah, so in this case, we went with Sanity. I would say right now it's our CMS we choose that as CMS for many of our projects. We very much like it, and it's due to the thing that I already mentioned. We believe that the editorial experience matters. So basically, you have to be able to have control over it, and to some extent, you have control over how the administration panel looks like, how it behaves, what it does in every of those CMSs. However, in Sanity, it's a core assumption that you will customize the admin panel. So out of the box, you create your own schemas, you create your own models, you keep them close to the code. You actually share some of the tokens between your project and Sanity. So and all of those other things that we've already mentioned, like great content, like and so on. But the extensibility, the ability to customize it, basically right from the start, and that's what gives us a lot of confidence that we'll be able to support every business flow that our clients would like to have.
Okay, next question is from an anonymous attendee. Evan showcased how components are reused within Sanity to build new content. If a new component is required, is a developer needed to facilitate that?
Yes, but yeah, if you want to make a entirely new component, correct, we would need to ask Michal and his team. So we're very careful. We very mindfully chose what we needed for the launch because we knew most likely we weren't going to just start adding more and more components right after that. So we have not really added any components since we launched in September. Maybe we will in the future, but there's so much right now. It'd be pretty selfish of me to like add even more at this point. But it depends, like on anybody making a site, making those decisions. I think that's where in the design process, you really need to figure everything out, everything you need. And then you got to like filter that down into like what's absolute and what can kind of be combined into, we had so many designs. So it was like figuring out that componentry system was quite difficult. But yes, you would need a developer to add another component.
Okay, good answer. Let's see, I have another question from anonymous attendee. So what design elements typically have hindered performance in the past, and how did you resolve those with this new sort of architecture and site build?
With design?
From design, from a choosing your stack or your tech, kind of whichever direction you want to take it, maybe a little bit of each would be great insight.
Yeah,
I think I have a good example of that. So like one of the common things I would say is the sliders. So Evan, for example, if you could go to some of the collection sites and maybe the mobile view, that's where we have a lot of sliders basically. So yeah, even a bit, yeah. So for example, in here we do have slider on every element. So if I would have to go with a rule of thumb for that, this slider basically doesn't hurt the performance at all, and feels quite natively because it's a CSS solution. So whenever you can keep it as close to the platform as possible and use like native solutions, like something achieved through CSS or native API, for example, instead of using library, you can, like, for example, in this case, we are showing indicator on which element you are. You could use library for that, but there is a ton of built APIs like intersectional observer, for example, that you can use in here. But that is also something I really liked about our cooperation, that we discussed those problems when those emerged, and we came up with a solution that satisfies both sides, because we knew that sometimes some of the effects will basically have big negative impact on the performance, and Evan done a tremendous job of basically keeping all of those interesting parts of the site, but making it so that we can implement it in a performative way.
I think we have time for maybe one last question. So last question, and then we will go ahead and wrap this session up. So it looks like this checkout is using standard Shopify checkout. Are there other sections of the site served directly from Shopify versus Shopify headless content being served from Netlify?
Evan, would you like to answer it, or should I take it?
Yeah, I think
Okay. Yeah, I can take it. So no, the checkout is the only part of the site. Right now, there's a lot of things happening inside the Shopify ecosystem, and accounts, for example, in some non-distant future could be another part that would be served directly from the Shopify. But yeah, at this point, the checkout is the only part.
Great, thank you so much. All right, and with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap up. So let me go to our final slide. All right, well, thank you everybody for joining us today, especially Michael and Evan. Super appreciate y'all joining us and giving us all of your insights and showing us the amazing design of Aether.com. So we hope you found this session insightful. Feel free to find any of us on LinkedIn or visit our websites to learn how we can help you build your next luxury e-commerce experience. Thank you so much for joining. Have a great day. Cheers.